Tuesday.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome, you guys. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what you're doing at this lunchtime here. Well, we're lunchtime here on the East Coast. But we are here to do DIY painting and talk about how to use stencils to craft and DIY.
Yep, I'm Carrie, that's Patty, and we are with StudioR12 Stencils, and we do this every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and we love helping you guys out and answering your questions and all the fun stuff. So, before we get too into it, let's talk about our YouTube channel. We have lots of fun stuff on our YouTube channel.
It's getting better and better.
It is.
Like we're pretty okay, guys.
We're pretty okay.
Give us some hearts if you think we're pretty okay.
But we release new videos and tutorials every Saturday morning, and just because I said last week we're releasing this at 6:30, and everyone's like, I can't get up at 6:30 to watch it. That's okay. It's on there all the time. But in case you're an early bird and you're drinking your coffee and you're looking for something to do, then you can jump on our YouTube channel at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays.
It's kind of nice because the weekends are your fun time. So you wake up in the morning and you could sit out on your porch and you could be on your phone and you could be like, what's new with whatever's going on in the painting world, and just get inspired. So that's why we put them up on Saturday, so you have just like a little present to you.
Absolutely.
To have a new thing to do on a Saturday morning that inspires and lifts your spirits and stuff.
Yeah, agreed. So last week, hey you guys, tell me my angle of this. Last week we released part 1. This is going to be a 4-part series. Part 1 was how to do the distressed background with a sponge. And then this week is part 2, and part 2 is going to be layering stencils. We're going to show you how to paint the map and then apply the stars over top of it.
And it was a fun project to do. When you watch me doing the stars over the top of it, like some states didn't get as much respect as others, and I had to go back and give them some star love. It was pretty fun to see some of the funny little mistakes you can make when you're doing layering stencils.
Oh,
it's a fun technique.
It is.
Really fun. Really easy too.
Yeah, and then we just recently, thanks to you guys, we just recently got over we have 4,000 subscribers now on our YouTube channel,
Hearts
which is
to these
amazing.
Guys. Thank you so much.
All.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that's it. Make sure to ask your questions below so that we can do some giveaways. I have some fun giveaways for today and for our grand prize tomorrow. But we have something super fun for you guys today.
I know, you guys, this is a little bit for everybody. So let's talk about being a beginner. What do you do? How do you start stenciling? If you are not a beginner, you will want to stick around just because I'm going to kind of go over the basics. And a lot of times, especially most DIYers who are learning from home, are learning on their own, and they're just kind of doing things as like the brain says to do it or from their life experience. You're probably going to pick up some really cool tips and tricks. So stick around and see if that's true. And if you have any tips and tricks that you want to share with us, I've noticed, I was looking at some of the comments that were coming through. We have noticed that our stencil fans are just so sharing. So these videos and in the comments is a really neat community of people. We don't need to have just necessarily just Facebook to have that community, because if you're commenting on a Stencil Basics and you say, oh, this is a really good tip, then the people who are beginners are going to be reading those comments. So when you guys share and talk about the brushes, or you guys share and talk about a mistake that happened to you, then it's just really just helpful for others watching the videos. So, okay, so let's talk about our basic supplies. We're going to come over here. I've got these laid out. There's not a lot that you need to stencil, and we have big drum roll, we have come up with a basic stencil kit, and it has 1 foam brush, the 3 set of the dome brushes, and 3 boards and 3 stencils, and that's what's included in that set. And are there just 1 set of the kinds of stencils?
There's 3 different individual sets, and then you can buy it as a full set.
Okay, cool. And so anyway, but that's just a really good way for you to go and get started. You buy a little set, a little kit of something, and then you have everything that you need. And then I'm going to show you how to use them in this video. So that's super fun. You're going to need a board of some sort or a surface. And let's talk about that for a hot second. So canvas counts as a surface. Lumber, if you have that laying around, or you can just go to the hardware store and get them to cut you a length. What I like about lumber is you can stack things. You can put things, you can stand them and stuff like that. You can put them on your mantle. You can put them in the middle of your dining room table. You can paint the front and the back of them, and that kind of thing. We tend to paint on a lot of MDF. You can put holes in it. You can use command strips on them to hang them. You can string them together. You can put them in wreaths. That's a neat thing with the flat wood. My strap is pulling my hairs. And then you can go to, antique stores. You can go to garage sales and you can find just different, like this is a garden trug, or this could be used on your dining room table to put candles in, that kind of thing. So there's just so many things that you can do and use to paint on. You can paint on fabric, canvas, bags, all that kind of stuff.
We had a quick question about canvas, actually. Yeah. Can you use the same paint on canvas that you would use on wood?
What's in your tumbler today? Yes, you can paint with the same paint on. You can even use the same paint on fabric. So there is a fabric paint. The reason for fabric paint is going to be for keeping the material a little bit more flexible. Acrylic paint tends to dry, and the fabric paint is acrylic. It just has a different medium, a different carrier in it. See what I did there? Carry. Okay. Anyway, but the regular paints harden and they'll be like really crisp and crunchy and stuff like that. So that's why. But yes, you can use the same on all of it. And then let's talk about the paint for a second. Today I am just talking about craft paint. This is Decor Americana. There are brands, I don't want to be maligning anybody's brands, but if the paint is 50 cents, it's probably mostly water. I'll say that. So you want to be careful. DecoArt is actually a really good product. I've painted with it for, I think 20 years. I used to use Delta Ceramcoat before DecoArt, but then they discontinued a million things and I just moved on and went to DecoArt and they were phenomenal. And they're a great company with great ethics to deal with. But their product is really good and it does go on sale, and the craft stores have been well supplied lately. Last year when all of the machines went out in Houston or whatever, it was difficult to get paint, but I think it's all back fixed. And even our supplier for the big bottles that we buy has finally gotten back online, so that's good. Okay, and then a couple other supplies that you need: a pair of scissors. Tape is pretty darn handy. You can do it without, but it's handy to have. We like 2 grits of sandpaper. This one is 100, this one is 60. You can also use a 200. If you have an 80 instead of a 60, it's not going to be the end of the world. So just a sheet or so of sandpaper, or even little bits and bobs of sandpaper that you have laying around. Like this one will last you for a really long time. So we've just got little ends of things and we just keep them. And then eventually, we'll just, I don't know what happens to them eventually. Maybe you'll hear a news report from Southeast Ohio that woman gets trampled by a big ball of sandpaper. I don't know. I don't know what will go on. But we do really like the sanding blocks. That's more advanced, but I wanted to just keep this really beginnery. Beginnery? I'm not sure if that's a word. You guys can vote. Is that a word? Are we allowed to make up words here?
You do quite often.
Okay, so while we're getting started and talking about things, why don't you guys vote which one I should paint today? Do we want to be love simply? Do we want to be thankful? Or do we want life is good? And you guys can vote. I'm going to talk about foam brushes for a hot second. Okay, so the foam brush that comes in here, the reason we like this is because of its density. This does not move around and it does a really good job of spreading your paint. We've got our example here. I quit destroying like 20 brushes. I went ahead and just kept the one. These guys are super like flimsy and they don't have enough push. It's almost like baby muscles. They don't have enough push to shove the paint and flatten it. Get this off of there. And if you guys do have questions, please ask. And then The reason why ours is better is because the wood support goes halfway up, and then it has an extra little plastic support in the tip. And that's what gives it its muscles and its might. And this guy right here, just its stick ends right there, and then it goes only part way up. If you want to see the full review on these two brushes, we have a duking it out with the two kinds of foam brushes on the YouTube channel, and we can put a link for that.
Life is Good is the overwhelming winner.
Love it. Okay, Life is Good. Let's start with that. The dome brushes, we're going to talk about these in a minute. If you guys want to let people know what your experience was or is while we get to that, we're going to base coat first. But that'll give you time to do a carry clickety-clack. If you ever get a chance to hone in on the typing,
you can hear it.
You can totally hear
impressive.
it. Especially when you're really into your painting and you're painting and I'm typing, it's a nice little background.
Yeah, it's like a little rhythm, a little rhythm of the rain there. Okay, so the sealing of your board. If you have a pine board, you might want a sealer. If you have MDF, it's really hard. You don't really need a sealer. We have a video on YouTube, and if you guys want to go ahead and subscribe and then ring the bell on the channel, that will let you know when we put new things up, and it will kind of mark us in the closet of YouTube where, closet, why do we have to be in a closet? Okay, so in the auditorium of YouTube, there are so many things. It's easy to lose the thing that you want to keep track of. I find that if I don't subscribe to something I really love or save the video for later, that I forget where it is and I can't find it again because I watch a lot of YouTube. Okay, I'm not going to use that one because it's brand new, and that's our little set image. Okay, so we're going to go right to paint. Let's talk about loading your brush for the paint. This is where you that have more experience might want to listen up because this is really important. I'm going to go ahead and base in the white, and I'm going to not have a wet brush. And if you want, not if you wash these, when you wash these, do not use soap in them because they will foam up later, and then you'll have bad things happen. So we're just going to pick up a little bit of paint, and I never scoop the paint. It's always best to just keep it nice and flat, keep it on the down low, right? And then you just put gentle pressure, and the goal here is thin, even coats. When I go off my edge, I try to go off the edge like I'm sweeping a porch, okay? And that keeps my edges clean. If you have to start fixing things because you made a mess, it becomes irritating to paint, and we don't want to be irritating. So if you control the load, that generally will control what you're doing on your board. And these projects, you guys, are so amazing for gifts. Imagine making just a little Life is Good, spare board, giving it to your best friend, your BFF. You go out for coffee and you give her a little bag with this board. She's going to have that forever. Like, this is so touching to be able to just, and that's like a really good argument for a stencil. A stencil is Mylar, it's plastic, it's reusable and if you're nice to it, it's forever. Like, you can use this thing and use this thing, and you can wash it. It's flexible. You can wrap it around candle, glass. You can do all kinds of things like that. So please, please, please know that you can reuse them. And then, you can have more than one BFF, and you can make everybody a little present, Thank you. Okay. So same thing on this side. I didn't talk about blow dryers. A blow dryer is a really good thing to have. Notice that as I'm sweeping off the end, notice that my end is nice and still clean. Okay, so that's a really good thing. If you've applied a really light coat, I'm not picking up paint on my middle pointer finger. Some people point inappropriately. Anyway, but I'm not picking up paint, so it's dry enough that I can go ahead and make a second coat, or I can go over to my blow dryer and just okay. And then for those of you who are maybe very experienced at painting and DIY, next week for the live, we never say what we're doing next week, but I feel like this is a good week to say what we're doing next week. Next week we're going to do like pro hacks. So things that you can do once you have a little bit of experience. And beginners, you can learn this stuff too. You're just going to pick up I call them tools in the toolbox, you know. So, but we're going to show you some things that are really cool to do.
While you're painting,
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and
Gonna type?
Nope, I'm not typing right now. I'm going to do my job. I'm going
Do your job.
I'm going to do a giveaway. We have several of these to give away today.
Oh, I love the
It is
round ones.
Yep, Bless Our Nest round.
So cute.
These are super popular for door hangers, you know, for people who don't have the big porch to put a tall porch sign on.
Yeah.
The round door hangers are so popular.
I've never seen a bigger trend.
know.
It's like every door sign that's a door hanger is round.
Yeah. And so we have several of these to give away today. It says Bless Our Nest. It has a little laurel on it. And our first one is going to go to Vicki Roger Stroud on Facebook. She is joining us today for the first time.
Yay! Welcome, Vicki.
Welcome, Vicki.
I'm going to go ahead and hit this with the dryer. Here, turn it on. Touch on something that I thought of today. Your foam brush, by the way, beginners, foam brush always goes directly into the water. Got a little bucket of water here. You can push on it a couple times just to loosen that paint up, and then it'll just kind of flop in there, and then you wash them at the end. Finer artist brushes, which you won't have yet, these that are Taklon and made out of silky material and stuff like that. These you swish out in the water and pinch them off, and you never leave them nose in the water.
Yeah,
There's a video for that. And then these stencil brushes are fine to leave sitting in the water, and they don't seem to get hurt by that. But there's a really cool thing. A lot of crafters have Cricut machines, and they use the plastic material, the vinyl material, to make their own stencils out of, which is fine. We want to show you how to use stencils. And so this, if you have friends that, you know, do stencils with different kinds of materials, some people cut them out of cardboard or use a X-Acto knife, that kind of thing. If you have friends that do that, please share with them that we have this content, because this is really about how to make every painted DIY project pretty and beautiful and successful. So, okay, this is still a little bit damp. I'm gonna hit it one more time. What's that? Did everybody hear Steve go, ah? Do you want me to go back here?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Steve should tell us how he really feels about the blow dryer. Okay, so this is a really good time to talk about a pro technique that a lot of people miss. I've taught painting for 30 years, and so when you put sealer or medium or paint, they call paints a medium. I don't know why, but anyway, it will make a rough surface on your board. The more quality your feel of your painting looks, the more quality that your stenciling looks, the more beautiful your project will be. And it sounds funny to think of like a rough surface as not being beautiful, but it is a thing. A lot of times I've done craft shows and trade shows for years and years, and people will come into your booth if they're buying or whatever, or if you give a gift, and if it feels silky, if it feels fine, if it feels good, they like love on it more. You know, it's like really people almost like see with their hands first, and then they engage with it and whatever. So we can go two directions with this. I'm going to use we'll talk about this for a hot second. Okay, this piece of sandpaper has red paint on it. If I sand on this project, I'm going to have red residual on my white paint. So I'm not going to use this. I'm going to grab the sheet, and what I would do is I would just tear off just a piece, okay, And then you can also use a brown paper bag, which is kind of a neat technique. Okay, so we're gonna go in here and we're just going to very lightly push. And we'll feel it. Okay, and then I wipe off all the dust. And now I have a much smoother surface to go with. It's just not, I think the paint just kind of makes little bubbles when it's being applied or whatever. And I think those dry in a pointy upward way. Okay, so now we'll take our Mylar stencil. We'll lay it down. This happens to be the size of the board, which makes it really easy for lining up. We have lots of videos on how to line up, how to tape down, all of that. I always take 2 pieces of tape. So I'll take one and cut it in half. And you always tape corner to corner. So you're gonna tape on one side and then tape on the other. You don't need to tape it all the way around. If you find satisfaction in taping all 4 corners, then by all means do it, okay?
However, I will say that as a former non-peaker,
Yeah,
the more you have it taped down,
the less likely
you are
That's a
to
really good
peak.
point.
And Patty's going to talk about why it's important to peak once
Yeah,
she starts
so
painting.
if you can lift these corners, then we call that peeking, where you're peeking under something. That is really important to be able to do. So if you are painting and you do, 4 coats and you don't realize you've been bleeding under, and bleeding under is a terminology that we're going to talk about. So let's get into that first, and then I'll talk about peeking. Ooh, we got the new brushes over here. Okay, brand new brushes. When you get your brand new brushes, sometimes these will lose hairs. They glue them in one big wad like that. They dip them into the glue, and then whatever the process is. But some don't get to the glue, and they will fall out. If they fall out, just brush them off your project. But that is very common with bristle brushes. Okay, so let's talk about the shape of the brush. So you could use other things to apply paint, and we actually have 10 tools, 10 ways to apply paint through a stencil as a video. It's really interesting. We used paper towel, sponge, my finger. We swirled with it, and it's the coolest thing. You need to watch that video. Just go see it. It's just fun. And it was surprising, actually. I think it's really kind of cool.
How quickly the list grew.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so these are shaped dome. So they're cut like this. And what that means is if you use a craft store stencil brush or other lines of stencil brushes, when the flat hits the surface, it kicks the toe or the edges of the stencil brush under your stencil. And so the stencil is very thin, and it's not super thin, but it's thin enough that those bristles can just kind of sneak right under there. Okay, so that is what you don't want to do, because you don't want paint smeared everywhere. This stencil is creating a screen for you to get your lettering on with. And so that's going to give you a perfect line if you follow some of these basics. Okay, so it's shaped really well. It's super stiff. When I'm hitting my hand, you can see I'm hitting it hard. Ow, no.
She has a red mark.
I do. I'm hitting it real hard, and you notice you're not seeing any pushing or splaying out. These brushes are brilliant. And bleeding is what happens when paint sneaks under or bleeds under the edge of your project. Okay, so now we get into loading. We've got a dry brush. You cannot use these to stencil while they're wet. If I wash this out and need it for another color, I take it and put it between paper towel, and I step on it with my foot, okay? And that way it gets all of the excess moisture out. If you have a little bit, it's gonna be fine. You just might have to do an extra layer. But these brushes do not work damp. They just start smearing things. If you have wet paint, it's gonna sneak under. You gotta have dry brushes, and that's why the set of 3 to get you started, so that you have them to change colors with if you want to. Okay, talking myself to death here. You talk for a second.
Well, I had a question from Lisa about, she said, what am I doing wrong? My dome brush keeps getting flattened. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now.
Okay.
Since we're
I
on
think
dome brushes.
sending her to the how to wash your brushes.
Okay.
That is a video that we did in my kitchen, because it's got a sink that we could film across on. And we talk about how you clean these brushes so you don't get them flattened. If you needed to, you could go and kind of reshape I really kind of wonder if you couldn't reshape. I'm going to try it. I'm not going to do it today. I wonder if I couldn't sand the edges of my dome brush to sand it a little bit more domey. The flatter they get, or the shorter the bristles, because as you're wearing them down, you wonder if she's stippling and not swirling ever.
Stippling does it too.
Huh?
Stippling can flatten them out.
Yeah, if you're doing this, then you could be flattening your brush, as I'm thinking through like what could cause that. But cleaning it properly will help, and swirling will definitely help keep its domeness. They do wear down. We have a painting shop here in town, and lots of people come through there, and we have lots of brushes, and we have lots of probably fast washing going on, and the bristles do kind of get shorter and shorter. And if you have an aggressive washer or an aggressive painter, they can get flattened. Thankfully, they're affordable, so you can own a good handful of them and not put out a lot of money. Okay, be careful to make sure that you get your brushes. Supply chain, everything has not gotten better in the current state of affairs, so we are trying to order millions of them and keep them in stock, but it just seems to depend. Every other day we have a different problem. Okay, so how to load it. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to load into the black paint. I'm just going to pick up from the edge and just setting my brush into the edge and then pushing it down. That's like perfect to have just that bit right on the tip. I don't want to scoop it and have it everywhere. If it gets everywhere because you load and load and load and you're doing a big project, that's going to be fine. Just make sure you're wiping or offloading. So then we go to a good quality paper towel and we just wipe that pretty aggressively. Notice that what I'm doing, and notice I'm immediately going to lose a hair. I'm not going straight back up and down, back and forth. I'm kind of swirling on my paper towel. That can help keep your shape of your brush too, and then I'll tuck my brush dry and have to reload. But I tend to tip it as I go around. Okay, and now we're gonna come over here. Our preferred way to paint is to swirl with hardly any pressure. So if you notice, I'm going to just be tippy-toeing, and it's gonna be just and we'll peek right away, Rusty, if you can get down here. So we just have a little tippy-toe peek of our paint, and it's just dusty looking. That's going to dry really fast, and that's going to make it easy to do a second coat. If you notice that, and then on these skinny bits, like right here, those can be difficult to swirl, so I will go ahead and stipple. So if you're a beginner, tell me if this is helping you and if you have any questions, because I want to make sure I answer those beginner questions. Okay, so we get that. Just a little, the skinny bits never ever like to swirl. And it's so fast. Watch how fast we can get a whole sign like painted. Oh, I was saying earlier, you can go two directions with the sandpaper. You can sand to smooth it, or you can sand to make it rustic. So see here, we sanded through. Hey, I'm using that pointer finger. So we can sand through this and make it look a little bit more primitive, or a little bit more rustic, a little bit more shabby chic, a little bit more like old antique kind of thing. So we'll just go across. And then keeping in mind that these are reusable stencils and you can use them over and over and over again. One big mistake for people that are doing vinyl stenciling, this can be a big problem because if you put it on crooked, then you can't fix it. And I'll show you what we do to fix things in a little bit. But once you peel it off, you've got to do it all over again. So that's unfortunate. Anyway, so now we'll peek and all is good. Life is good. Pick up some more paint. And sometimes you'll get little bits of your paper towel in there. I think these are Bounty, and I think that maybe Bounty has gotten a little bit more affordable. Well, maybe not more affordable, but maybe slightly less quality. I don't know what's going on, but they used to not do that. Okay, so now we do a second coat. Just stippling. Swirl. Swirl is the way to not have a lot of heavy going on. When I'm swirling, I'm barely touching versus if I'm stippling. Do you see the difference on that? That is so much heavier, and you can pick it up but if I swirl, I can't get anything off of my hand. It's almost dry when you put it down.
Peg asked if you're cleaning stencils with wipes, is it best to use ones with or without alcohol?
Alcohol will take paint out, so I would say that, but I would say you want to follow it up with a water rinse. You don't want to just, a lot of the wipes have things in them, like detergents and other chemicals and stuff, and if that stays in your brush, I would worry that if it removes the paint with the wipe and you don't rinse that medium out of your brush, then I would worry that it would soften the paint when you apply it the next time. So that could be a problem that you would run into. So make sure that you rinse out whatever medium when you get done painting. That makes sense. Okay, so then we'll come over here, we'll take a little peeky poo, and it is looking nice and dark. I could do a couple more coats, but I think I'm just gonna finish with the one. We always offload every single stinking time. If you think that you're going to, this is irritating to me because this is a lot of wasted paint, and I cannot tell you how much thought I've given to this. This is so much wasted paint. However, if you use this paint in your brush, on your board, you're gonna have way more wasted paint because it is going to be a big mess and you're gonna have to sand it off. You're gonna have to start all over again, and it's gonna look like crud, and you're gonna throw your crud away, and you're gonna be like, I don't like this, and you're gonna be mad. I'm giving voices. I'm not supposed to. Okay, so we'll finish this side. We'll do a reveal. I'm gonna do a little heavy-handed something or another over on one of these sides here, and I'll show you how to fix a boo-boo. And then if you guys, make sure if you wanna win prizes, like, share, and comment, and you do it like the main, do we have a main thing for tomorrow?
I have.
Sometimes we do.
I do. I have a beginning of it, but I will announce it.
Okay.
I haven't been announcing them, but I will announce it this week. We have a new cross collection that I posted about on Facebook yesterday. And so one of our grand prizes is going to be one of our 5-piece cross stencils.
Yeah,
and there
so
will be
cool.
other stuff added into it, but this is going to be one of our giveaways for the grand prize.
Yeah, and so to win in the grand prize, then in the next 24 hours, you're going to make sure that you're commenting and liking and doing all of that stuff. Okay, I'm going to do a rookie mistake. I'm going to go without unloading my brush. And I'm going to go ahead and stipple, and we'll see what we get. Okay, so it's good enough. I want to push a little bit harder just so it's a little bit more obvious. So the brush is almost, okay, the brush is almost difficult to fully load and fully screw up. So that's what's so cool about the brush. And then I also tried to screw up after I had 2 coats of paint on it, which sometimes the paint gets to the edges and it kind of seals the edge so the paint can't escape. So if you screw up later in your project, it's likely to be more okay than earlier. But these bristles do not, like this is a good example of one of those. Rusty, can you show down here? When I push on this, see how that does that? And when I push on this, I can barely get it to happen, so. Oh, and if you have a painting table like this, rubbing alcohol will take some of your paint spatters off of it, and that's lovely. Okay, so I'm gonna put that in water. We're gonna peel the reveal. Okay, and we'll just lift straight up. Oh, good, I got some good ones there.
So if you could, I know what you're going to do to work on that D, but let's do a part 2 of that. Someone asked, what can you do after paint has dried after a couple of days? And you then realize that you had some cleaning up to do. Okay,
so paint is one of your best erasers. That's a really good question, and I have a super good answer. I'm gonna blow some hippie noodles. You ready for it? Okay, so if I was not using, this would not work as well without a Mylar stencil. And throw all my paint bottles around. I'm gonna dry that off. Let that dry for a minute. If you are a beginning stenciler and you have a mess on the back side of your stencil and you peel it off and realize you forgot something or you want to use it again, if you put this back on when that is wet, it will make a big giant mess on your board, and that is a problem. So paint is an eraser. So I've got this, say my L is junky looking and it's been 2 days and I was really afraid of it and I didn't know what to do and I wasn't feeling bold, or you did a mistake and then you came and found our YouTube video and you were like, oh, beginner things, I learned how to fix it. You can go back a year from now and you can fix your mistakes. So what you would do is you would pick up your base color and you just go ahead and wipe a little bit of it away, and then you would, let's pretend like this piece is the part that got jacked up. You're just going to go over the top of it in thin coats, and then I can even just like shear it off there just to, and I'll let that dry. I'll apply another one. Let's just go ahead and do it. Welcome, Steve.
Wow.
Steve puts his earphones on, and then I'll come in with my clumpy shoes, and then he'll be like, oh. Pretty fun. Pretty fun for me. Okay, so notice, yeah, Steve's like, no, it's not. So notice how that thing is disappearing. Okay, so we'll do one more time, Steve. Sorry. If you just had little straggly bits at the edges of this board, on this line right here, it would more than likely be covered by now. You don't necessarily have to cover the whole black thing. Unless your board was crooked or you put your stencil on crooked, what you can do with that is you can sand and then just base coat over the top of it again, and then straighten your act out, and then you'll be good to go. I'm going to do one more coat just to prove makeup works. And isn't that amazing? That just disappeared in just a couple of coats. One more time on the blow dryer. Okay, before I get too dry, so if you have fresh paint and you need to fix something, this is one of those techniques that you want to know about. This is a click eraser. It is just a vinyl eraser. I'm gonna dip it in some water. Now I've been blow drying, so I hope I didn't get it too dry. And I can go right next to where I bled under, and I can erase that. And then I'll take a dry paper towel and just blot that off. And if the eraser is dry, it will not pick up the, it won't lift the paint. But if the eraser is wet, then it will lift your paint and it will fix your boo-boos. It's like a big Band-Aid for painting boo-boos. This works for spatters that inerrantly fall someplace. If I dig into my D too far and it gets a little soft, I'm seeing that kind of happening. If I do that, then what I can do is I can lay the stencil back on top, and that will I'll just repaint the black, making sure I offload my paint. I'll get that inside cleaned up. Just got like half of the hair on my head. Okay. Do the inside. It's really the warbly lines that are the not attractive things. Okay, so say this isn't as clean. Notice I've got dirt on my eraser. So what I can do is I can clean up my eraser and then reload water. And then I can clean up the black smear that I made. And presto changeo. I think that is just such a hippie noodle, mind-blowing little technique. I just love it. Okay, so now we're gonna go back into our stencil because they're reusable. You can lay them right back on top. And make sure you get it lined up well. Okay. And you go into a brush. Offload your brush. And we'll just give it a little stipply swirl. Stippling because I want to try to match how much paint there is on the other, and I don't think I have to do anything over there. Okay, and reveal. Ta-da! So that's how you erase a mistake. That's how you literally erase a mistake. And that is how you do basic stenciling. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Make sure you comment and let us know what you think.